All right, it's 1 o'clock on my clock, 1 o'clock Eastern, so I'm going to get this started. First of all, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for attending the first workshop for job seekers with disabilities that is sponsored by both Deb Russell Inc. and James Emmett and Company. We are pleased to bring this content to you, developed primarily out of our experiences of helping people with disabilities find jobs by helping employers learn how to employ them. So it's been a really interesting experience for my career working with employers who want to have a more disability inclusive workplace and watching how they work through that, what they do to change that, but also seeing opportunities for job seekers to have a better experience applying for jobs and getting those jobs. So the tips we're sharing today are all from our folks at James Emmett and Company, our embedded specialists, who suggested these are things they think help the job seekers that they're working with be more successful in their search for jobs. So let's get that started. Quick introduction. So I'm Deb Russell, and I've been helping companies employ people with disabilities for about 20 years now. In 2006, I had the opportunity to work with Walgreens and help them in their adventure of trying to employ more people with disabilities. We set a big goal. We wanted 10% of our workforce to be people with disabilities, and we achieved that goal. It was a wonderful experience. I was there for 6 years, helping the company figure out how to do this. Walgreens was the first company to embark in this adventure and really trying to look at it across the entire enterprise, not just in one location, not just in one business unit, but really look at it holistically. And our experiences there educated so many other companies, and that's really what we've seen happen with all other companies that came after Walgreens, was leveraging the same kinds of lessons learned that we had there. So we're just very pleased to be able to share those with other companies. And now I work at James Emmett and Company, the most successful disability inclusion consulting company in the world. And I'm just so pleased to be able to bring this information to you today. James Emmett and Company is a national brand that has been operating for 10 years now. James Emmett is one of the people who helped design the model at Walgreens. And we have a very large and continuing to grow group of consultants who are assisting multiple companies in the country who want to employ more people with disabilities. And I will talk more about those specific companies and where you can find information on them at the end of the webinar. We focus on people with disabilities and people with all sorts of barriers because we know that disability is not exclusive and that many individuals who experience multiple barriers also have disabilities. And so we want to make sure that we can assist everybody in finding their way to employment. As I said, our journey has moved. We now call it an alternative workforce, not just a disability inclusive workforce. But this webinar today is focused on job seekers with disabilities, although I think most of the tips are very universal for any job seeker. So let's hop into it. I've got 3 sections of this webinar. It's only a 30-minute webinar, so we're going to zip through this pretty quickly. This is being recorded. I will share the webinar replay with everybody who's registered, so you will get an email from me that has this recording, and it will be a captioned recording, and we'll make sure that the captioning is clear. So let's hop into the content. So before applying, we have several things that we think are important for you to think about before you're applying. The first one is to make sure you've got the right communication tools in place. I have only been doing this for 10 years outside of Walgreens, but I see so many people who have their email address being Sweet Cheeks or I'm a dude, or something very casual, something that's great for your friends, but not necessarily appropriate for a professional email interaction. So we recommend that you get an email account that you're just going to have for your applications, for any interactions with your employers. You can use a free account like Gmail or Hotmail or any of those other ones. That part doesn't matter. But make sure that your email address is something that's very appropriate and professional. Perhaps your first and last name and a number after that, or your last name and then your first name and a number, or an initial in there, something like that. It's just very cut and dried and connects back to you so that when they're using that email address, they know that they're using the right email address. Same with voicemail. You want to make sure you have voicemail and that your voicemail outgoing greeting. So what the person hears when they call your number, what they hear is something very professional. It says, "Thank you for calling. I'm so sorry I can't get this call right now. Please leave your name and number and I will get back to you quickly." In addition to making sure that your voicemail is set up properly with that kind of outgoing message, is to make sure you're checking it. So I advise people to set alarms on their phones if they're not regularly checking their email, especially if you're going to keep it as a separate email account from the one you're talking to your friends or your colleagues or your family members. You want to make sure that you have something that's dedicated for this and that you're checking it regularly. The pace of communication now for job seekers and applicants is incredibly fast. So 2 to 3 times a day at least, if not hourly. You don't have to be obsessive about it, but you want to be able to respond in a timely manner or follow through on whatever tasks they're sending you to get to the next stage through the application. So making sure that you've got your communication tools all set up is really important. And it's also important to think about what you want and what you need in a job. When you're starting to decide who am I to apply for this job? Why do I want this job? Why do I want to apply for it? Or why do you want to apply for any job? What do you need? So these are things that I think are important. Think about what you need to complete the application. Do you have your resume? Do you have all your references information? Compiling all of that into a workbook or a worksheet, having it all in one place makes it a lot easier to make sure that you have the information that you're going to need for filling out applications. And to be aware of what accommodations you might need. Understanding that most applications lead to an interview. Will you need an accommodation during the interview? You don't necessarily have to disclose during the application process. So if you're going to need assistance with your interviewing, then you want to make people aware of that and be prepared to ask for it and to provide them with documentation they may require to prove that you're eligible to get that accommodation. So that's something to think about ahead of time. What kinds of accommodations would you need? Get versed in being able to ask, what's this application or what's the interview going to be like? So you can be aware of what you might need. If you need to be asking for a quieter space, is it something that's out in a very noisy area or is it in a secluded area? Will you need a wider open space because you can't be in places that are really tight? Those are things you need to think about and be sure that you know what accommodations you're going to be asking for. And then to review your finances. What do you need in a job? And I don't mean what you're going to be doing, but how much money do you need to make? It's something to think about. Will the jobs that you're applying for meet your financial needs? What's your minimum number of what you need to be living off of? Or do you have goals and you want to be buying a car or getting a house or other things like that? And you want to set your goals, financial goals, to align with the jobs that you're applying for. So if you've never worked before and you're applying for jobs right now, you're looking at a job that's probably going to pay between $12 and $15 an hour for entry level. So if that's full time, how much will you earn? And don't forget about taxes. You're going to have taxes taken out of that. So is that enough to pay your rent or to pay your mortgage or whatever expenses you've got as well? Not just the bare bones, but the goals of socialization or investments. All those sorts of things are very important in deciding what job you're going to apply for, which jobs you're going to apply for. So I think it's important to think about that and consider these things before you're even completing those applications or selecting which applications you're going to complete. Let's get to the next section. So during the application, let's make your application successful. Let's be sure that we are stacking the deck, making sure that you have as much of a chance as possible in securing your interview. That's the whole point of an application, is to get to the interview. So you want to be choosing jobs that you are wanting, thinking about what do I want to do? Have you ever gone and talked to people about those jobs beforehand? Do you even know what the job does? Look at the job description in the posting, being able to think about what do I want out of a job? What's important to me that I can provide to an employer? Those are things that I think are pretty important. What's your lifestyle? Are there shifts that are important to you? Or does it not matter right now because you just want to get your feet wet and get going somewhere? Those are things to be thinking about. But also think about not being too picky. There are a lot of jobs out there right now. The job market is really rich. And although it may feel like you can pick any job you want, don't be too picky. Have your mind open. Think about things that might be a stretch for you. What's something you've never done before that you think, I might be good at that? I think I've got some of the characteristics or the skills that would be really important for that. So thinking about that when you're thinking about what jobs to apply for, doing it with intention. Don't just fill out every application here, there, and everywhere. It's easy to complete applications because they're online, but think about what you want and what you're looking for. And then as you are completing the application, have intention to make sure that you're answering the questions. Learning about the jobs is really important. If you're unfamiliar with a job title for a job that you're applying for, how can you do some research about that? The internet makes research very easy now. You can look up what does this job do. You can see videos on YouTube of probably that exact workplace, but if not, people doing that same job somewhere and get a sense of what is that job like. You could talk to people who have that job title. If you were somebody who had thought about wanting to be an accountant, well, who in your family knows an accountant, or who of your friends or anybody else in your circle? Who do they know that's an accountant that you could interview and ask? Learning about the job is really important, and carefully reading the job description. When they say that they're looking for people to work all shifts, they mean it. So if you're only available to work for a 4-hour period on Tuesdays, it's probably not a great match. You want to find someone that's got a lot more flexibility. So I think that's important. Where is the work site? Is this something that's someplace you can get to? Is it someplace that you can get to interview? Is there public transportation? And if not, what are your options outside of that? Those are all things that are important to think about while you're looking at selecting which jobs you want to apply for. Look up what the company has to say about employing people with disabilities or other barriers. Is this an inclusive workplace? Do they have examples of things that they're doing to be a more inclusive employer, to be a good employer? Or what's important to you within your values of an employer that's really great with the economy or really great with the planet or other issues that might be important? How can you relate these back to that? So thinking about those sorts of things of what you want and thinking about what the job and the company offer will be key in helping you make sure that you are picking something that's going to be something you're going to want to stick with. We all job hop a little bit, which means that we're moving from one job to another, but we want to try to find something where we're going to want to stay there. That's what employers are looking for. They are looking for somebody who's going to demonstrate that they're interested in this job, interested in working for that company, and interested in staying there. Whether it's having promotions and moving up or just staying in the same position, that's okay. Either one of those okay, but employers really are looking for someone who's going to stick around. So being able to demonstrate that through the research that you've done, I think is important. The last thing is to think about completing the application by understanding the questions they're asking you. Applications these days are pretty basic. For the most part, they're all online, so you can see the questions. But you want to think about, what are these questions really asking? Don't spend too much time on this, but think about, if they say, what shifts are you available? Look at the shifts that they're offering, the start times and the end times, or the departments. Is this something you are really interested in? And if you're only interested in work on Saturdays, then only click that. But if you're open to all sorts of things, not quite sure what you want, whatever, then say that you are available for everything. What the application is doing is it is determining whether you are qualified. And pretty much these days, qualifications have to do with your availability to work when they need somebody to work, your availability to work overtime, your availability to do the tasks, and your willingness to do those tasks. So be as positive as possible on your application. You don't want to lie, but I think being as open to whatever they're suggesting and asking is important in an application. And that's what we're finding these days, that if somebody is saying they're not willing to do the things that the application is asking them about, they're probably going to get screened out. And again, remember, the application is your avenue to an interview, and that's your goal. They're not going to hire you straight off the application. They're going to want to interview you. So you want to be able to get that interview and secure it. If you're going to need support in doing this, go ahead and grab it. Have a friend or a parent or a counselor or somebody else help you look at the application, think about what the questions are really asking, and make sure that your responses make you attractive for them to be offering an interview to you. The interview is where you get a chance to actually explain who you are and what you want and those sorts of things, but you need to get to the interview first. So the application is your way into that. And we'll talk about interviews in just a second. But I think that that's something that a lot of people don't think about. They don't think about the fact that the application is just your way in to the interview. So we want to make sure that we're completing it as accurately as possible, but at the same time, making sure that we are being as open as possible to what they're asking. Let's talk about the interview, because I think that that's the hardest part from my perspective. You want to make your interview successful. You want to practice. So what kinds of questions are they going to ask you about? That's the first thing to think about. If you've never been on a job interview before, or if you have not been very successful in job interviews, you may want to find a friend or a counselor, again, a parent, a sibling, somebody who can help you think through what questions am I likely to encounter, and how do I frame my responses in a way that make me look attractive to them? What is that employer looking for? What do you have to offer them that they're looking for? And how do you frame that in a response? So I think that one of the first things to do is to prepare, practice with questions. You can get online and you can Google or use whatever search engine you want, all sorts of articles and links and videos about interviews and what are the typical interview questions you're going to see. Think about the format of the answers. So a lot of employers actually ask for the STAR format, meaning they want the answer exactly in a very specific format. Tell us something about this. They want to know what the situation was, what you did, what the results were of that. Those are important in those responses. So it's not just to say what you did, but to give the results. So be prepared for those sorts of things. Practice, practice, practice. If you don't have a friend who wants to sit with you through this whole thing, record yourself and then review that and practice again. Watching yourself over and over on video is great, but you also want to practice saying these things out loud. Being able to answer questions confidently and be able to have your thoughts ready in the front of your mind, explaining why you're a great candidate and why you've got what they're looking for, and that you understand what they're looking for, and ways that you can convey to them why you are the greatest candidate they've got. Those are all things that are important to practice. So you rehearse them, you practice them so that they just run off your tongue no matter what's going on, no matter what other distractions are happening in the interview. You're going to be very confidently explaining yourself, answering their questions, and being able to respond to other questions that they've got. Presence is the second tip I've got for make sure your interview is successful. And presence is your body language and your attitude and your aura and your voice inflection and how you gesture and all the things that you can, if you're watching me on this video, you can see that I'm doing things that are impacting your opinion of me. You're listening to what I'm saying or reading the words across the bottom of the screen, but you're also taking in a lot of information from how I am presenting to you. This presence that we call that is very important. They have studies that say that most of the information that we get is through nonverbal cues, meaning it's not what somebody's saying, and it's not even how they're saying it. It's what they look like when they're saying it. And that may feel unfair, but it is how humans operate with each other. So think about that. Practice standing up straight, practice taking deep breaths. I actually was involved in a workshop where they recommended that you do some power poses in the bathroom right before an interview. And a power pose is something that makes you feel tall and strong. So one of the ones that I really enjoy is the Wonder Woman pose, where you put your hands on your hips and you stand straight with your head up. Take a deep breath, smile. All of those things will make your body feel better. It will relax you and have you feel confident and ready to take that interview and just show them who you are and that you're the best candidate that they could possibly consider. So presence is very important. Breathing, relaxing, don't get too stressed out about this. Take your time. All those things are important for presence. And I'm saying presence as in your presence, not presence as in gifts. So just to be clear. Finally, it's important to think about follow-up. As soon as you leave an interview, you should be thinking about, how am I going to say thank you for your time, to reach out to the person who interviewed you. In not all situations will you get the email address of the person who's interviewing you, but you have the email address of the HR folks, the human resources folks at that company. So you can always send the email to them saying, I just want to express my gratitude. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciated the chance to explain myself and learn more about your company and the job. There's all sorts of things that you can say to let them know that you really do appreciate the opportunity that they may be extending to you. You also want to look at what's the timeline. How soon should you be thinking about, hey, I haven't heard anything. Maybe I should check in with them. You do not want to bother them every day. You want to let a little bit of time go. Hopefully during the interview, they've explained to you the process and you'll have an idea of the guidance of what time frame is reasonable to hear something from them. But it doesn't hurt to just reach out and say, hey, I'm sorry, I haven't heard anything. I'm just checking back. Again, don't do it every day because that's a little bit over the top. But you do want to check in regularly. It shows that you're interested. And it makes sure that we realize everybody's busy and maybe something's happened and they've not forgotten, but they've gotten busy and gotten distracted, and you want to bring yourself back to the center of their attention. So that follow-up is really important. I should have said during the interview, take notes. I think that's really important. A lot of people don't take notes. They're afraid that it makes them look bad. If you can scribble down just a few things, or if you can't take notes during the interview because it's distracting while you're speaking, as soon as you walk out the door, get on your phone or on a tablet and write out your notes. Remember what they said, what they asked you, what you responded, what information did they give you about the process, about the jobs. You want to write all that down so you've got your notes. And again, that helps you with the follow-up. All right, so that's the three main parts of the presentation. I did want to talk about what JEC, James Emmett and Company, is doing. So here on the screen are some icons, logos, of previous customers like Walgreens, Office Depot, UPS, TIA, P&G, Procter & Gamble, PepsiCo, Cintas, Mercy, and Best Buy. Here are our current customers. This is not all of them. I couldn't fit them all onto one screen, but we're working with Academy Sports and Outdoors, Advance Auto Parts, Geodis, Drive, Telemon, Cape Resorts, Neiman Marcus, Reynolds, and Sippy. And we have these really unique projects called cohort projects, where a group of businesses are working together to become more disability inclusive and be able to reach their the full talent pool out there of anybody experiencing barriers. And one of those is through a cohort of e-stewards, which are e-recyclers, electronic recycling companies, and the other is through Argosy, which is an investment firm that focuses on manufacturing. So we have a lot of jobs. There's actually other jobs, other companies that we represent. I just couldn't fit them all onto one slide. So let me show you where you can look for this information yourself. How do you find out where are all the hiring sites that JEC represents? You can go to our website, which is www.jamesemmett and Company, JAMESEMMETT AndCompany.com. Again, you'll get this information again when I send you the email with the replay, but you can also take a screenshot of this if you want to. And when you get to our website, go to the tab that says Job Seekers and click on that, because this map is going to show up. So again, if you can't quite see where that is on the screen, at the top of the website webpage, our homepage, there's a menu bar, and one of those items is Job Seeker. You want to click on that. A map is going to show up with all of the locations of customers that we represent. These companies are all hiring right now, and there's more. It's hard to keep this up to date every day. I took this screenshot a couple of weeks ago, so it's even bigger now. If you don't see the location you're currently in listed on here with a big red location marker on there, it's okay, because we are continuing to do this to grow our company, grow our contracts, and work with more and more employers. We're adding about 2 to 3 a month, so it's pretty fast for us. These things continue to grow and build. There's just a lot of opportunities out there. If JEC doesn't have any locations that are good for you, just reach out to all sorts of employers. A lot of companies now are looking for good employees, people who are interested in helping them be successful doing the jobs that they've got. They are looking for people who will stay. Retention is really important, that they will show up every day. Reliability is really important, and that these are individuals who are flexible enough to do what needs to be done. So if an employer says, I need dishwashers, then you need to be a dishwasher. If you can't be a dishwasher, please don't apply for the job there. These are what employers are looking for: flexibility, reliability, and that you're going to stick around, that kind of tenure sort of thing. So these are the ways that you can look for a job. These are our tips for suggesting how you can be more successful in your job search, starting with before the application, what you're thinking about, how it fits with you, and making sure you've got your tools set up during the application, making sure you're answering things correctly, understanding what the questions are, and having everything, all your information available to you right then and there. And then through the interview, practicing what your responses are going to be, making sure that you're demonstrating that you're confident and you're ready for this, and then the follow-up afterwards. So I want to thank you all very much for attending this webinar. It's a nice, short, brief one. As I said, we will be sending out the recording to everybody who registered. So if you've got some friends who registered and weren't able to attend this live, they'll be getting the recording as well. And we really appreciate the opportunity to share what we've learned so far about helping people be successful through that job seeking process. It's very challenging to look for a job. It's hard on all of us. When we're looking for a job, it's stressful. It has a lot of different dynamics we need to think about. And hopefully this webinar has given you some points to kind of center around your thinking and your planning as you go through your job search. Again, thank you for your time. Much appreciated. We will send you a recording of this, and I hope you all have a really great day and a very successful job search.